In today's video, I'm going to cover all of my most frequently asked questions about the ocarina and learning how to play the ocarina that I have pulled from my comment section. Before I get started, I just wanted to remind you that if you are looking for a new ocarina, you can head over to stlocarina.com and use my code Gina for 10% off your entire order. And for any demonstrations that I do today, I will be playing this one by STL Ocarina. It is their Purple Clay in the key of C. The first question is, why does my ocarina not sound right? This is a question I get all the time. I actually made a video about this to help you walk you through what might be going wrong. Number one, it could be user error, which can easily happen if you are new to an instrument. Biggest things, you might not be covering the holes all the way. Different things like that. You might be using the wrong amount of air, but definitely check out this video right here where I walk you through exactly how to diagnose what the issue might be. The second problem though, which unfortunately is a lot of the time, it's the ocarina. It's not you. And that's hard, especially when you're starting out, because you're like, how am I supposed to know if I'm doing it correctly or not, or if it's just the instrument? And again, I have a multi-step process to figure that out. Unfortunately, a lot of instruments are made just kind of to be displayed or as a toy, and they're just not quality instruments, even though they say meant to be played. I actually also did another video about different ocarinas that I found on Amazon. Unfortunately, I would not recommend those. You can watch that video here as well. It was just really disappointing to see that these were marketed as instruments to be played. They even had songbooks or having fingering charts or things like that on there, so it leads you to believe like you should be able to play this. And then I played them and they didn't sound right at all, and that can be really frustrating, especially when you're getting started and then you ultimately don't know what's wrong. So hopefully that one of those videos will help you find out what the issue might be. Number two, which is better, a 6 or 12-hole ocarina? So this is our 12-hole ocarina, and this is the 6-hole ocarina. It comes down to personal preference. Personally, I would say if you are looking to play a lot on the ocarina, to go with the 12-hole, just because there is a lot more music available for the 12-hole, and also a lot of the tutorials are on the 12-hole. However, if you are buying an ocarina for a child, this is definitely a great thing to do, is to go with a 6-hole because it's easier for them to hold. It's also a little less complicated, so that would be a great option. The third question is, what is that wavy sound that you do? So probably what you're referring to is something that sounds like this. And there's a lot of different speeds, rather than just a straight sound that sounds like this. That technique is called vibrato. Do not start with that, by the way. However, I do have a tutorial on how to do that, which is linked right here. Number 4, which is the best ocarina for beginners? We already talked about 6 versus 12 holes. Unless you are purchasing this beginning ocarina for a child, I would probably say to go with the 12 hole. Again, there's just more options available for you. So I would definitely get a 12 hole in the key of C, and I would also get a tenor ocarina. Number 5, is it okay to start with a double chamber ocarina? I would probably not start with a double chamber ocarina. There is also another thing called a triple chamber ocarina, but ultimately the double and the triple are more advanced, and it's just going to be more confusing. So I would just say start with the single chamber, which is the typical one that you see if you see something that says 12-hole ocarina, that's a single chamber. So I would start with that one, and then once you feel really comfortable on that, feel free to graduate to either a double or triple chamber. Having the double or triple chamber ocarina just gives you more notes you can play and extends your range. Number 6, should I get a plastic or ceramic ocarina? Now, this is kind of going back to the which is best for beginners. I'm assuming you're a beginner if you're asking this question. If that's the case, there are, of course, a lot of different options for materials. You have the plastic. That is going to be the most durable, and it's also the most affordable. It's going to still have a really great sound, and it's a really great place to start. Now, if you're kind of envisioning that you're going to be doing a lot of ocarina playing, you might want to opt for a ceramic sound. A lot of people at some point will kind of graduate to that. It does have a higher price point. The ceramic has a bigger and more warm sound compared to the plastic. It's a personal preference thing. I will mention there are other different materials available at STL Ocarina. There is the purple clay, which is the one that I'm demonstrating on today, and then there's also the porcelain. Those are a little bit more of advanced options if that is something you're looking for. But again, those come at a little bit of a higher price point compared to the plastic or the ceramic. So it just depends on your budget and what your playing style is. I would say that the purple clay or the porcelain is great for if you are playing an ocarina in a concert setting. Number 7, where can I find more sheet music or tabs for the ocarina? That's a really great question. I do have a playlist that I have different song tutorials, so definitely check that out. But if you are looking for even more material than that, STL Ocarina does have a bunch of different songbooks available. So including their Zelda songbook, they have a Christmas songbook, and a bunch of other ones, so you can definitely check that out on their website. Number 8, my ocarina that I bought on Amazon doesn't sound like yours. How come? We kind of already went over this, but again, unfortunately, it's hard to know on Amazon. Sometimes there are amazing reviews and a lot of reviews, and then ultimately it still doesn't play well. So it's best to go to a reputable source, a reputable company to actually purchase your instruments. If you want to see me demo some of the Amazon ocarinas that I purchased, you can check that out right here. Number 9, should I get an ocarina in the key of C or does it matter? That is a great question. I would say to start out with one in the key of C. The reason for that is because there are more resources most likely available for the key of C. Also, a lot of tutorials that you're going to find are going to also be in the key of C. That doesn't mean you shouldn't get some of the other keys, but you might get a little frustrated that you get one in a different key and then you're playing along with a tutorial and it's not in the right key and you're like, well, mine's higher or lower than the tutorial, and so it can just be a little frustrating. If you do want to understand more about the different keys on Ocarina, I have that video available as well for you. Number 10, should I use the neck strap that came with my Ocarina? I would absolutely say yes. If your Ocarina comes with the neck strap, definitely do that until at least you get to a point that you feel really comfortable playing the ocarina, especially if you have a ceramic ocarina, because those are obviously not the most durable if they like fall and they could break easily. So having that neck strap just allows so if something slips, it doesn't fall on the floor and break. So that's what we are preventing. So yeah, definitely start with the neck strap. You don't have to always have it, but I would definitely say when you're starting out on ocarina, have that neck strap on. 11. Why am I out of breath when I play my ocarina? Well, ocarina is a wind instrument, and just like when you go swimming and you have to dive to the bottom of the pool and you get a little winded, it's the same thing when you're playing a wind instrument. So it's important to build your stamina, build your air capacity. I have a video talking about how to sound good on the ocarina, but it also talks about a lot of breathing techniques. So I would definitely recommend checking that out. One thing that I did for a long time that was really helpful is that I would do what's called a long tone. So what I would do is I would breathe in and get as much air in as possible, and then I would hold a steady note as long as I could. I would watch the clock, and then every single day I would kind of figure out, okay, I hit 20 seconds, okay? The next day I try to get a little bit further, and so on and so forth, to just be able to expand upon the amount of air that you're able to store and play at a time. So that's another option for you to be able to build that. Number 12, my high notes are not coming out. Why? It might be the way in which you're putting air through the instrument, so adjust that and see if that fixes it. But again, we were talking about instruments that really weren't made to play, and a lot of times you'll really notice that in the high notes. So I'm talking like the high C, the high D, the high E, the high F. That's where you're going to notice it the most. Number 13, does STL Ocarina deliver to Europe? Yes, they do deliver to Europe. However, the shipping is expensive. No matter what it is that you're purchasing, if it's out of the country, it's really expensive, and that's just the cost of shipping, unfortunately. So STL does offer, if you're having a larger order of $109 or more, they offer free shipping. So that's an option. I would suggest maybe finding some friends, and then you guys can all buy ocarinas, put in one order, and then that way you can get free shipping. Number 14, what's the best ocarina to use to play Zelda songs? That's a fun question. Of course, you can play any Zelda song with any of the ocarinas at STL. However, they do have some Zelda-themed ocarinas, so I will show you one of them right here. This is their tenor ocarina in the key of C, and it is a 12-hole ocarina, and it's made out of ceramic. And then there are also a couple other options. There's one that is in a lighter blue, as well as a plastic version of the Zelda Ocarina. Number 15. There is some confusion about alto and tenor ocarinas. Can you explain? Yes. Every instrument and different companies have different naming categories for different instruments. And so some makers are going to call an instrument with a certain range an alto, and others will call it a tenor. So I have seen in some other makers that they call tenor an alto, and honestly, there's just different naming methods. You know, this is an inconsistency that can happen across a lot of different instruments, something to be aware of so that you're not wondering like, why is this one an alto? Why is this one a tenor? But a lot of times if you're seeing that discrepancy in STL Ocarina, sometimes what is labeled an alto is actually a tenor for STL. Number 16, what's your favorite ocarina that you own? That is a really hard one because I have so many and I love a lot of them for different reasons. I would have to say there's two that are probably my favorite. The first one was the one that I was showing you guys earlier that I'm demonstrating on, which is this one right here, which is the purple clay tenor in the key of C. The other one that I really like is actually the water ocarina, also in the key of C, tenor ocarina. And it's this one right here behind me, and they both have such a great sound. Number 17, should you start on soprano, tenor, or bass ocarina? That's a great question. I would say to start with a tenor, and that is because the tenor is going to probably feel the most comfortable in your hands. A bass is going to be bigger and is harder to reach, and the soprano is a lot smaller, so it's harder to be accurate. Let me show you what I mean. Here is the soprano. This is the air ocarina, by the way. And it's just a lot smaller, especially if you have bigger hands. I have small hands, so it's not such a problem for me, but it does feel a lot more cramped. Now let me show you the bass in comparison. Here is the shadow bass in the key of C, but as you can see, it is so much bigger, and since I do have smaller hands, it is harder to reach, especially, I'll show you a little trick that I do. These holes on the back, sometimes it's hard for me to cover, so I actually put tape over part of it. That's how hard it is for me to play this, even though I've had a lot of experience playing these instruments. So there's that reason for the bass being harder to play, as well as that it is a lot heavier. So tenor is going to be the most comfortable for you to play when you're starting out. And our last question, number 18, where are the Ocarina stands in your background from? So you notice that I have these different stands in the background. Those are actually also from STL Ocarina, and they do have those available to purchase. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm hoping also that I was able to answer some of your questions. If you have more questions for me, I'd love to do a part 2, so leave those in the comments below. Just a reminder, I have playlists here to teach you how to play the ocarina, as well as song tutorials, which you can find linked right here. Thank you so much to STL Ocarina for making this series possible. Make sure that you subscribe to me here on YouTube so that you don't miss any of my future ocarina videos, and you can also find me on Instagram and TikTok, and I want to wish you the best of luck on your ocarina journey.